my garage. My name is Paul, and tonight we're going to be working on a Christmas project that is basically taking a page from a book and making it into a wall decoration. So this was my favorite book growing up as a little boy, Are You My Mother by P.D. Eastman. And what I'd like to do is give a gift to my mother for Christmas and put the very last page of the book. Basically, long story short, the little baby bird gets lost and is trying to find his mother. And then at the end of the book, he finds his mother. So that's what I'd like to do. So I'd like to take this and put it into a wood project so that it can be hung on a wall. So basically what I'd like to do is take this extra piece of scrap, which is a little bit smaller than the book, but that's going to be just fine. The book is about 13 by 9.5 inches. And this piece that I have left over from some American flags that I make is 11.25 by 8.75, but I think that's going to be fine because I found this printout online of the last page of the book, last two pages of the book, and then I just reversed them. You can easily do that in Microsoft Paint, just Google how to do it. So it's going to look backwards to you guys, but basically we're going to do a photo transfer at the end of this project and put that onto there so that you'll have this image and these words, but also with the grain of the wood. So it's going to be a nice woodworking project. And so what I'd like to do is basically make it look like an open book that's hanging on the wall, but made out of wood. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to route it out so that we have the actual, what do you call it, the front and back of the book. And then this is all going to be a whole bunch of sanding to get this nice profile going on here that looks like an open book. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that this will be a fairly easy project. And you guys, as always, can see my successes and failures and hopefully learn from them. And if you have a project in the future where you'd like to have something from a book, whether it's for yourself or for your mother or your kids or someone else who's important to you in your life, then this should hopefully be a fairly simple and straightforward project. Okay, so basically we need to turn this into this. So there's a couple of dimensions that we need to consider right out the gate. First of all, I want to know how thick the back and front of the book are. It looks like it's about 1/8 of an inch. And so the other thing that we need to consider is how far away, how much of a border we have basically. And so I have this router bit that's a 3/4 inch, and it looks like it will fit beautifully if we do it such like this. And then, so I'll just set this basically 1/8 of an inch high on the router table, and we'll cut, this is 3/4 of an inch in, and look at that, it just looks perfect. So essentially what we're going to do is take this piece, put it on the router table, and we're going to chop the edges out like so all the way around, with 1/8 inch clearance going up and 3/4 inch going in. And then once we're done with that, all we're going to have to do is do a bunch of sanding with the belt sander, and we're going to try to create this book profile. Now this is the very last page of the book, but what I'm generally going to try to do is pretend like it's more like the middle of the book and do more of a profile kind of like that. But we'll get to that later, and let's go over to the router table. Okay, I've got this router bit set to a 1/8 inch height off the top, and we already know it's 3/4 inches in the depth that it's going to cut. And so let's go ahead and cut the whole area around our entire piece. Okay, so we wanted to get that nice little edge rounded in there, and we have done that. We've got this all a nice little 1/8 inch edge around our entire piece. But I will be honest with you guys, I had to learn the hard way. I made 3 different mistakes. So this one was going nicely until it hit a knot that was sitting right there and popped all of it out. So that's one mistake I made. Thankfully it didn't happen there, but Number two, there was, if you can see, there's a slight curve in this. There's a slight cupping, so it kind of does this. And so it was nice over here at the beginning, and then as it went through the router, it got thinner and thinner and thinner until there was nothing left, and it just chopped it all off right there. Totally ruined. Good firewood. And then this piece was even more pronounced in how it's curved, if you can see that in the camera. So it started off nice right here, got thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner until there was nothing left, and just blew right out. So these were just cut over left-offs, but I've managed to find one that was, these are from the American flags that I make. If you want me to do a video on the American flags I make, let me know. But this is the remainder from the American flags. Good news is we can still make this work. Here's the original size, but the smaller version that I'm going to be actually doing is still going to fit quite nicely right on there. And so I think what I'm going to do next is we have to make our spine right down the middle. So the idea is to cut a center line to the depth that we want. So essentially the depth that we want there, and then sand this out into a page profile. So I was thinking maybe table saw, but you know, that might knock that out. You know, I may do it on the radial arm saw, because that way I can have a depth preset and cut the entire length of this, and it shouldn't cause too many problems. So let's go ahead and try that. Now, in order to find the dead center of this, we could quite easily just measure and go divide by 2, but I want to show you a nice little trick, if you haven't already seen it, on how to find the middle even if you don't have a measuring tape. So you just go corner to corner with a straight edge, and I know that this piece of wood was cut straight, so we go corner to corner, draw a line, corner to corner. Let me flip it so you guys can see. Corner to corner, and draw a line. So now this is the dead center of our piece. And if we have a combination square, or a speed square, sorry, then you just line that up right there, draw your line right down the middle, flip it around, do the same thing to complete your line on the other side, and now we know right where the dead center of this is. And I know I've just drawn all over the surface of my nice beautiful piece that's going to go to my mother, but we're going to be sanding all of this surface off. So now we have a dead center. Let's go ahead and move over to the radial arm saw and set our depth to cut a nice little groove there. Okay, so radial arm saws, if you're not familiar, have kind of become not that popular in recent years, mainly because if you don't know what you're doing, you can really severely hurt yourself. But they do have a lot of really wonderful features. One being that you can do a cut as deep as you need to without having to necessarily, it's kind of a blend between a table saw and a miter saw. So I'm trying to show you guys in real time how I'm deciding to make this cut. And so what I'm going to do is line you guys up with the blade, just like I'm looking at the blade, and you can raise and lower the table as needed. So I think I'm going to lower the table to right about there, and maybe you guys can see just where basically the spine of the book is going to be. I'm going to get you guys lined up here, and it's going to be noisy and you're going to maybe get a face full of dust here, but I'm lined up on my line. That's the middle of the book, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this and push the saw through the book there. So here we go. There we go. Now you can see exactly why this is a wonderful tool to have sometimes. Real quick, while we're on the subject, let me show you why these tools, I believe, went out of circulation. Okay, so real quick, so we just saw that we could cut a certain depth by setting this whole table raises and lowers however deep we want our cut to be. But generally speaking, you're cutting through the entire piece of wood. You want to cut it all the way through. So you would turn it on and, but the thing is, this blade spins this way, which if you think of it as a tire, it's going to want to run this way as it's on, as the blade is spinning. So if you put a piece of wood here and you wanted to cut it there, it would cut right through and no problem. But the problem is, let's say you have a thicker piece of wood like this. You're not necessarily thinking about it, you're working all day, and you put your hand here and it cuts through. And if you can kind of see, well, let's use this. This is a pretty straight line. Let's say that was our line we're cutting through. You cut through it and it grabs and it wants to run this direction. And you have your thumb holding the piece of wood down and it runs straight through your thumb and takes your thumb right off. So if you don't pay very, very, very close attention, this is a tool that could easily take your thumb off and make you into a high school shop teacher. So I love this tool, but you definitely have to learn to respect it. Anyway, let's get back to the project. Alright, we're coming along quite nicely. It's about 15, maybe 20 minutes on the belt sander. The beautiful thing about this project is that it doesn't necessarily have to be completely perfect. We just kind of have to have that little bit of book profile, which if you look at, we have pretty much achieved. It's just going to be, I mean, really all you're going to see is from on the wall this way. So even this stuff doesn't even really matter that much. It just gives it a little bit of relief in a three-dimensional plane. There's some little things that we need to kind of clean up here and there, but I'm going to go ahead and do that with the random orbital sander once we're done. So really what I need to do now is to cut down this spine, or sand down this spine. So what I'm going to do is use my Dremel and take this smaller bit, and I'm just going to right down the middle of here, and that will give us a nice curved overlook, and we can always just clean it up later if we need to. Okay, I think this is looking pretty good. This is a little bit kind of curvy in here, but I think that's just fine. Really, this ends up being more of a sculpture project than a woodworking, I mean, or maybe a blend of the two. So what I'm going to do now is just hit it with the random orbital sander to take off these little kind of grooves and ridges here, just to kind of give it a nice smooth surface. But like I said, I mean, it's just mimicking how a page lays down on a book, and so there's not a whole lot of like, it's not a hard and fast detailed surface, and so that's the beauty of this project, is that it's kind of organic. Let's go ahead and knock it down. At this phase, it is pretty important to knock out any hard, crisp ridges, because when we take our overlay to put on there, then we don't want any rough surfaces or sharp corners are going to make the image not come out very well. So what we're going to have is on one side of the page, it's going to be lettering, which obviously that'll be kind of messed up if there's a really sharp edge that kind of gets chopped, and then also in the photo. So the photo transfer method that I'm going to be using is using Mod Podge, and there's a bunch of videos out there. Some of them are very conflicting on which ones work best. So what I'm going to do is I'm taking the best print that I have from of the book, and I'm going to take this little paper cutter. I recommend, if you guys are doing any kind of crafts or anything, just go ahead and spend the $8. It was like $8 or $9 on Amazon Prime, and this has just turned out to be so helpful on so many times when you might be worried about making a perfect cut with scissors. It's worth the $8. Just go ahead and buy one. We're going to go ahead and put our Mod Podge on. If you notice on this piece, it's just the text, so I'm not worrying too much about getting to the edges. We'll probably end up scraping it out towards the edges. but all I care about on this piece is the text. On this one, I want the whole picture, so it's going to be a little bit more of a spread here. So, and I plan on trying to clean up the edges as much as possible. Now the white and any extra colors like this smear that I'm getting from my bad printer are going to show up. So alright, so here's our photograph. So this is the right side of the paper. So I'm going to place it here in the corner, right, or in the crease. And again, you want to move it as little as possible. Now here's very important, make sure that I get the words facing the right direction, because you would hate to get to this point and have it be, your letters be upside down. You want to make sure to get all those bubbles out, especially on both sides, because those bubbles are going to show up and make your end product look kind of funky. The reason I'm scraping this way is because it's roughly flat in this direction. If I do this, it's wavy, so this flat piece is not going to behave very well for me. And you know what also I can do it, because I didn't mask it, once I'm done I can wipe this with the wet rag, and a wet towel is always the best thing to take off excess glue. It looks like I need to do this again. Kind of tough, there's a lot of things to be considering here at the same time. Alright, so I'm going to try to wipe this edge off without introducing any new bubbles, and then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Let it dry out and come back to it tomorrow. Well, as sometimes projects go, this one got a little bit lengthy, so I went ahead and split the video into 2 different sections for you. So there should be a link in the description below for part 2. Thanks for watching.